summary. Okay. After that, what do we got? Okay, so there may also be a section for personal gifts. They call it specific bequests or specific gifts, and that you fill that out on your own. You do it in your own handwriting, you sign and date it, you say who gets what. And that's just for stuff you can touch or see, physical stuff, okay? It doesn't mean you generally don't give money on those pages. You give your diamond ring, you give your tools, you give your guns maybe, okay? Then there might be a lockbox trust. So if you wonder whether you have a lockbox trust, there should be 2 trusts in there. And again, typically there's another red page on the top of it that says another set of instructions. Okay, a lockbox trust is that one, that's the protected trust to protect for veterans benefits and nursing home. There'd be a separate certificate of trust for the lockbox trust. Then we have maybe your wills next. So your wills, we still do wills, but they're a backup, just in case. So you still have a will even when you have a trust, but hopefully we don't need the will. Because if we have to use that will, a lot of people have come in and they told me their other attorney told them, and they probably just were confused, but they thought that their other attorney told them, I don't need to put my stuff in the wagon because I have a pour-over will, and the pour-over will is going to get everything in the trust. That's true, but it still has to go through probate, so it defeats the purpose of the trust. So the pour-over bill, we don't want it. We don't want to use it, but we still have to have it just in case. If you left something out of the trust, we need the will, and it's going to go through probate, but then it's going to get into the trust. Okay, so you each should have a will if you're married. Then we have powers of attorney. So financial powers of attorney, you're going to want to look on the first page of the financial powers of attorney, and on the very first line, don't skip to the second paragraph, some people do that, but on the very first line, it should say, who is the person who would be able to access your accounts today? Typically, our powers of attorney are effective immediately, meaning if you have one in there, the person listed on that first line could go down to the bank and take money out. In other words, they could steal from you. It would be illegal and they could go to jail for doing that, but the bank won't stop them, okay? So if the person listed on that first line that you think there's any chance that they might steal from you, you need to come in and we need to change that first line, okay? And then the second paragraph, it should say who would come next. Third paragraph says who would come next. Fourth paragraph would say who comes next. So we have an order typically 1, 2, 3, 4, or 1, 2, 3, or whatever. And so, but the person on the first line is the only one that has control today or has access to your accounts today. Then the next section is going to be your healthcare documents. Same thing. On the very first line, it should say, or very first or second line, it should say, this is the person who would be able to make healthcare decisions for me if I can't do it myself. And then it has backups. Okay, it has who would they call next? Who would they call next? If an emergency, they can call any of them. But if it gets to issues like life support and those types of things, then it's going to be depending on the choices that you made within the document. Also, if there's little tags on there, little flags on there in your trust, it probably means you didn't have your kids sign it yet. Okay, both the financial power of attorney and the healthcare power of attorney are supposed to be signed by your children or signed by the people you appoint, not necessarily your children, but the people you appointed. And we always put flags on there to remind you. If you've left the flags on there, you might want to, if the kids sign them, just pull off the flags. You don't need those anymore. If they haven't signed them, that's a reminder to have them sign them. And then finally, typically the last thing in there is your HIPAA waiver. Okay, if somebody says, I can't give you that information about your spouse because of the HIPAA law, the healthcare privacy law, then you pull that out, you email it or fax it to them or mail it to them or whatever, and it says, nope, they waived the privacy law as it relates to me. Same thing if your kids are listed on there. The kids would be able to pull that out and say, I can talk to you. Mom gave me permission to talk to you. She waived this privacy law. Okay, so you have a separate document for that. And then the final one would be deeds. Okay, usually in the very, very back of it is the deeds. Okay, and so you want to make sure that your deed is in there, number one, and you want to make sure that all of the deeds are in there. So if you've got 3 properties and there's only 1 deed in there, probably worth a call to our office to say, hey, did we put these other properties in there? Maybe you told us about them, maybe you didn't tell us about them, or maybe there was a reason why we didn't put them in there, and maybe that reason has changed. So if you don't have deeds for each property that you have, probably a call to our office is going to be appropriate. Amy Purcell is going to come up and talk about filling your wagon. Is your stuff in your wagon? And again, I sound like a broken record here, but basically your trust won't work without having everything in your wagon.
Thank you. Okay, Bob mentioned most of the information as far as putting things in your wagon. One thing I do want to bring up though is we talked about IRAs, things like that. We want to make sure that if you're married, your spouse is your beneficiary in most cases. Everyone in this room has a different situation, okay? So if you're not sure, always ask. Okay, but we want to make sure that if you're married, most cases your spouse is your beneficiary, so that you can have also those stretch provisions yourself to go ahead and take over the IRA as your own. Okay, sometimes you run into those issues. You hear, put the trust as a beneficiary and everything, and then that could defeat that whole purpose there. Okay, so we want to make sure that that's done. Again, as far as the banks go, you know, in some certain circumstances, people put their kids on their accounts. We don't like that for situations as, again, Bob said I have a bank background. I actually process garnishments also in at Citizens Bank. Many times, more than I can count, people would call and say, why did you take money out of my account? Well, because we have a garnishment. Well, that's not my son's account, that's my account. Sorry, his name's on the account. The money goes to the garnishment company. And it could be a medical bill that he had from 10 years ago that they just found an account that his name was on. So, you know, again, good kids, just bad things happen sometimes to good people. So, you know, you want to think about things like that when you do that. Unfortunately, you know, Bob mentioned the Chase situation. If, you know, they're requiring you to open a new account, you know, we don't like to change over our Social Security deposits and our pension deposits and things like that. Sometimes it's easier to do that than it is to, you know, go through the other route where somebody's coming in and taking money out of your account, or no one has access to your account because you've passed away. So remember, you pass away, no one else is on your account, or you have a beneficiary designation. You have to wait till there's a death certificate. You know, that takes some time. Who's going to pay the funeral bill? Who's going to take care of things for you? You know, those are things you need to think about too. So again, we want to make sure that things are in the wagon. Whenever you're purchasing property, changing financial advisors, any of those types of things, we want to make sure that you are clarifying that it is going in the trust. And even in the proper trust, if you have a lockbox trust and a revocable trust, which trust does it go into? So, you know, there are questions there too. More than likely, it's going to the lockbox trust, but you may want to make sure, you know. So those are things that, you know, we can help you with, and that is things that our office is able to assist with too. Let's see here. So as far as that goes and asking those questions, I want to bring up the annual support program too. So you have a flyer in the information packet that you were given when you came in regards to our annual support program. So all of these questions that I just imposed on you can be asked, and you know, you can call us, ask us those questions, any of those types of things. Any questions we can answer if you're part of this annual support program. Okay, you know, I can't emphasize enough. Bob talked about the annual meeting. You guys are all here today. We offer this as a courtesy to all of our clients. Okay, you don't have to be part of the annual support program to be here, but we want to make sure that you're aware of everything that's going on. If you have a question about something in your binder, I'd rather have you pay the $675 to come in once a year, meet with an attorney, have them go over your trust every year, and make sure everything's the way that it should be. Go through your finances. We'll do all of that with you, and there's a lot of other benefits that go along with it. We're offering workshops, phone calls again, like I said, titling new assets, so we'll talk to your financial advisor, you know, all of those types of things. One of the other big benefits is after death estate settlement guarantee. So you pass away, your kids need to come in, we offer that meeting. Usually as a free meeting, they come in, they ask their questions. It's usually part of all of your program, okay? They can ask all their questions, we'll help them, we'll answer their questions. Most of the time though, they need a new certificate of trust. Same as if you sell your house. You sell your house, you need a new certificate of trust. We're not going to prepare that for free. You know, there are charges. It's included in the annual support program. So things like that can be included. But the fee guarantee, as far as if you pass away, is great because we're going to give you a set fee. We're not going to charge the kids an hourly fee. They're going to come in, we're going to tell them how much it's going to cost, and that's going to be the fee. Because we know that all of your things are in the wagon. We know that all the things are all set for you because we've already taken care of it for you. Now, obviously, if there's anything outside that we didn't know about, there may be other things involved. But as long as we've been made aware and you're part of this program, all along, you're coming in yearly, we're talking to you yearly, we know what's going on in your life. So it's easier for us to help your kids to take care of everything for you. So it might be something you want to think about joining the annual support program too. Okay, so as far as bonds go, we have a lot of people that I've run into that have bonds. Everyone buys savings bonds, they are given savings bonds. They're a great investment. They get a decent interest rate, especially if they were purchased years ago. People have stacks of them. I have clients that have hundreds of them. They're great, and then we need to put them in the trust. So you bring them in, we have to have an online account. So you have to create an online account. Everything now, the government, through the bond system, nothing is paper any longer. It's all electronic. So you have to have an electronic account. Most people don't use a computer in this room. So I prepare, usually, the account for you. We go through that whole process. It's a very, very long process. From the very beginning to the first initial answer, as far as your paperwork and things and making sure things are the way they should be, it's 12 weeks. I can't call the U.S. Treasury for 12 weeks to find out anything. So 3 months they've had your bonds, and I can't find out anything for 3 months. So bonds are great as far as investments go initially, but we want to make sure that we're aware that they are also they're assets. A lot of people think, oh, they're just, they treat them like cash. They're assets. So you go into a nursing home, you have a stack of bonds. That's an asset. That counts as cash. So, you have to remember that too. So it's a good idea to put it into the name of the trust. We want those put into the trust. It's a long process, like I said. So you want to start now. That's something that you need to make sure is done for your benefit, for your kids' benefit, but we want those to make sure that they're put into the trust, just like any of your other assets. Okay? As far as an after-death information, we want to make sure, obviously, that the house is secured. So if someone passes away, we want to make sure the house is secured. So if you have someone that you're a little iffy on, not sure that they might go in and start taking some items before, everything's the way it should be. You want to make sure that you change the locks if you need to. Come in to see us. Obviously, call us. Someone passes away, call us. We're going to go take a quick look at the accounts, take a quick look at the information. Are there IRAs? Is it December and an IRA distribution hasn't been done for this year? That's one of the biggest things. Everyone sets up their required minimum distributions on their IRAs. Working at the bank, I'm going to tell you that 90% of the people have their distributions on, December 1st. Holidays, I'm not sure, but it's just the end of the year. December 1st is one of the biggest times of the year. Well, here it's November, and they didn't set it up. There's no automatic distribution on their IRA, and no one thought of that. Why would you think of that? That's the last thing on your mind. But they're going to pay a penalty. If you don't, you're going to pay a penalty if that IRA distribution isn't made that year. So you need to make sure that those types of things are thought of. That's why when someone passes away, it's very important that you call our office so that we can make sure that all of those follow-up things are followed through. We get calls from people, well, my husband passed away 2 years ago. Okay, well, what have you done? Have you taken any distributions? Have you done any of these things? I didn't know I had to do that. Okay, well, so now we have to deal with those types of things. So just make sure that, obviously we don't need to be the first person you call, but make sure that we're, pretty close to the top of that list so that we can help you make sure that things are the way that they should be. Get you in the office, go through your binder, maybe prepare a new certificate of trust if necessary. So things along those lines. Anything else?
Thank you. So let's talk a little bit about fees right now. So one of the things Jennifer brought up, and I just kind of want to give extra emphasis to the point, which is we want you to call us. So when Amy said call us, somebody dies, call us. If there's, and the idea is a lot of folks are under the, accurately under the impression that if you call an attorney, you will get a bill. And so we've made the commitment to say, look, you're not going to get a bill for calling us. Now, after that, we have to talk about, okay, how are we going to get paid? Some of you may have been with me long enough that it was just me and Carrie in that little basement office down the street there. And now we have, I think, 12 or 13 or 14 people. A couple of them are part-time. But why? Why did we get so big? And the answer is, it was just two attorneys, and the answer is to provide better services, to do more, Carrie and I could only do so much. Now we've got people, we can do more, we can provide better services. And so we can't do everything for free. But we do want you to call us, and you'll never get a bill for that. But then on that call, we might say, what you really need is this, and it's going to cost this. Okay, what you really need is this. Or a lot of times what they'll do is they'll say, we're not really sure what you need. You need to talk to Jen for 15 minutes. You need to talk to Bob for 15 minutes. That's going to be free, but at the end of the 15 minutes, they'll probably say, it's going to cost this. Okay, but one of the things that if I were sitting out there, I would say is, boy, a lot of the stuff that Bob talked about and that Jennifer talked about and Amy talked about getting the stuff in the trust with regard to bonds and IRAs and everything like that is, well, I got a little lost on all of that. And that's why we brought Amy on. I mean, Amy has been a great addition to our team because she's very efficient in all those things. So what we tried to do was, last year I think we offered you guys that it was going to be $200 or $300 to have her go through all your stuff and make sure everything was in the trust. So if you have 40 different accounts and you didn't take advantage of that last year, well, shame on you, because you really could have saved a lot of money to deal with those 40 different accounts. But that's not really fair, because some of you just have one or two accounts that you have questions about. And so we decided, no, that's not fair to charge you one set price if it's, maybe you only have one account that you have questions about or concerns about. But somebody else might have 29 or 30 accounts. And that's not really fair to us, that Amy's spending 12 hours on something and that we're not getting compensated for that. So what we ended up doing is Amy can help you with all of this stuff, and we're going to charge $100 an hour for Amy's services, okay? $100 an hour, so if Amy puts a half hour into it, it's $50. Okay, so $50, I already paid you this amount. Okay, I get it. But everything you did before and everything you paid us before might not work right if we don't get this part. So it's walking over a dollar to pick up a penny kind of a thing. Sometimes we got to do it, and we can't do it for free. Some of you we haven't seen in 10 years. Some of you you haven't been in our office. By the way, we have a new office, if anybody didn't know that. I was just mentioning our little basement office we had, 6-7 years ago. We've moved twice since then. We moved into that nice big building with the pillars right across from the Grand Mall. Now that we grew out of that space, and now we are in the old Reisig & Reisig building, which is right next to Chase Bank, just down the street, just north of McCandless. Really nice brick building, and so we probably won't grow out of that for a while. Carrie threatened to that instead of, if we grow out of that building, she said that, well, maybe we're just going to start firing people if we have to grow out, because she doesn't want to move again. It was really a hassle to move, but I don't think she'd do that. So anyway, the idea is know that we're here to help. It's not all going to be free anymore. And I say anymore because for a while we were doing a lot of extra stuff, and just, because we really want to help people. We really all have a heart of wanting to help people. And so we never want to say, well, we know the answer, but we're not going to tell you because you haven't paid us yet. We just never say that. That's just not something that we can say. On the other hand, we can't, we've got a lot of payroll now because we've got all these great people. I will brag just for a second here about both nationwide and in the state. I get attorneys coming up to me all the time and saying, boy, you got a great, team there. Boy, you've got great employees. And how did you do that? And I tell them, well, I'm a genius at picking people. I am darn lucky or blessed, whatever you want to call it, but we've got great people, and I really have people. We go to national conferences. Sometimes we speak at national conferences, and I have people, and a lot of times we'll bring team members. Amy and Rachel were just at the Elder Law Institute last week, and people, oh, Rachel's so great, Amy's so great, Jennifer's so great. That's actually one of the ones. How did you find an associate that actually works, and she's not even an associate anymore, she's going to be a partner. But the idea is, I get these compliments all the time. Well, and it is, and it's good for you, but we're going to have to, charge at some point. Or you could be on the annual support program. And so this is our idea. The idea behind it is to say, hey, sometimes we really don't like when you sell the house saying, okay, well, it's going to cost this much for a certificate of trust that we'll give to your title company. Or you need to meet with an attorney, and it's going to cost this much for the hourly rate for the attorney. Or, the settlement of the estate afterwards, it's going to cost this much when your spouse dies, or it's going to cost this much, after mom dies, or whatever. And so the annual support program is our way of kind of going back to the way we liked, which was we don't have to talk about money anymore. You pay us an annual fee, we don't talk about money anymore. Now, that doesn't mean that we're going to apply for Medicaid for you. Medicaid is an extremely labor-intensive thing. It means that exactly what the annual support program says. It means consultations. It means one meeting a year with an attorney. It means changes, even an overhaul of your trust. It doesn't mean going from a regular little red wagon trust to a lockbox trust. Okay, the annual support program is to support what you have, not to add on to a better trust at the annual support program price. So just to clarify on that. We're about to wrap up here. I just want to cover a couple other things here. Be careful who you get your advice from. Okay, we all are inclined every once in a while. We'll get this thing in the mail, or and says, hey, we'll take you to Andiamo's, or we'll take you to what's the one here, the Eduardo's, and we'll buy you dinner and come and talk to us. And sometimes it's a financial advisor, sometimes it's an attorney, sometimes it's an insurance person. And I don't have any problem with that. I get it. You got to have, different sources of information. But one of the things that I've had people come back to me multiple times recently, whereas they said, well, that Manor, he doesn't know what he's talking about, because he didn't use a ladybird deed to fund your trust, to put your house into your trust. Okay, so let's talk about this. There's a bunch of things like that, but this is one of them. This is the one that often comes back. Manor doesn't know what he's talking about. So, okay, you attended my continuing legal education class, and you learned from me, but you're saying that I don't know what I'm talking about. But here's the thing on this. There's folks out there that don't do any long-term care planning, have never filed a nursing home application in their life, have never filed a veterans application in their life, but they say, oh, well, these ladybird deeds are going to protect you from the nursing home. Well, the vast majority of the time they're not, okay? We use them very precisely, okay? It's kind of like when there used to be an annuity salesman that would say, you just buy an annuity and that's going to protect you from the nursing home. No, it's not. Sometimes we use them in a very small, precise way, just like sometimes we use ladybird deeds in a very small, precise way, but just having a ladybird deed is not going to protect you from the nursing home. Just having an annuity is certainly not going to protect you from the nursing home. But there's a lot of attorneys out there that are saying, well, this is evidence that you need to pay me a bunch of money, and I'm going to overhaul Bob's really good plan to a lesser plan, and because he didn't do a ladybird deed. And so sometimes they call them trust mills. And what do I mean by a trust mill? So sometimes they're trust mills because they really just downloaded a form from the internet and they're basically selling everybody a form from the internet. It's not really planning. Some of them are really good attorneys that don't just only do estate planning, but they came to one of my classes or to one of the other attorneys that do the continuing ed classes, and we talked about ladybird deeds, but they didn't hear the whole thing. They only heard 50% of it or 25% of it, and they said, oh, ladybird deeds are great. And then there are some attorneys in the estate planning field that say, oh, well, ladybird deeds are a great way to put your house into the trust. I disagree with that. Most of my fellow elder law attorneys disagree with that. There's an argument for it. Attorneys disagree, just like doctors disagree, just like accountants disagree, just like engineers disagree, right? So there's an argument for it. But I think the vast majority of the elder law attorneys that do this on a regular basis say, no, that's probably going to cause more harm than it is good. Okay, so that's one of those things that people go to a class, they go to the golf club, they go to Eduardo's or wherever, and the person says, oh, well, if you don't have a ladybird deed, then you don't know what you're doing. Okay, And I get this all the time. So there's a lot of reasons why the ladybird deed is actually a bad idea. We have to use them, and some of them we've done them for you, and it's typically if somebody's already in a nursing home. If somebody's in a nursing home, then sometimes we're going to use a ladybird deed. But it has enough drawbacks that we don't want to use it unless we have to. Quick legal update here. You want to talk about the home care contracts real quick, or you want me to do it?
In the past, you would come and we would say, if you're going to pay a family member, you need a care contract. So if a family member was going to provide care, you needed a care contract. There was a new case that has passed that seems to imply that if you are paying anyone, whether that be a third party, a friend who's no relation to you, to provide care, you need a care contract. And the care contract says these services that are being provided are not a gift, a divestment. So they don't affect nursing home. It has to get signed off by a doctor. As of today, the BIMs are not addressing it fully, meaning Medicaid is not saying it's got to be done, but it's out there. So if you are paying a caregiver who's a family member, and if you're paying a caregiver who is a friend or they don't work for an agency, you may seriously want to look at getting what they call a care contract. You may also want to get a care contract if you are paying one of these agencies. If the case law is followed by the books, that could affect your Medicaid benefits, which is kind of contradicting why you did it. You pay someone to stay in your home so you don't need to go into a nursing home. And that's why we are kind of opposed to the case, but it is there, it's on the books, it's out there. I just want to make sure everyone is aware that if you're paying someone to provide care in the home, we may want to look at getting a care contract for that.
So I wrote an article about this, and it's on our website if you want to take a look at it. I'm not very good at being polite sometimes, and I don't mean that. I hope I'm polite, but when I'm writing, I just kind of get to the point. And so I think that this case law that came down that said, if you want to stay out of a nursing home, and you're doing your best to stay out of your nursing home, and so you pay the neighbor to come over, you pay a grandchild to come over, or you pay somebody from church to come over to keep you out of the nursing home, and we're paying them probably below market rate, and they're working their tails off to help you and get you through so you can stay out of a nursing home, that they're going to penalize you for that if you end up going into a nursing home later. It's absurd. It's illogical. And so the article I wrote is fairly strong-worded because I couldn't figure out a way of wording it any other way. It's just absurd. And this is not to get into politics, but the state chose to pursue this. So what I mean by that is the decision was made at a local level. The local attorney, which is up in Muskegon or something, she appealed it to the circuit court, and the circuit court judge said, no, you can't penalize somebody for paying their neighbor to keep them out of the nursing home. That's just absurd. That's just absurd. Okay, so it should be over right then, right? They appealed it to the circuit court. The circuit judge said, no, that's ridiculous. You can't penalize somebody for paying their neighbor to keep them for home care to keep them out of the nursing home. The state of Michigan